pilots, Plasma 1945, welcome aboard. I'm going to do a high-low flight, and as Sun Tzu says, he who knows when he can and cannot fight will be victorious, and we'll use Flanker to all of its advantages. To help us along, I'm going to activate tacview on the right side of the screen, and this will give you an oversight of the environment and what's happening so you can figure out what I'm talking about. Powered by Fox 3 Managed Solutions. If you guys need a server for your squad for DCS World, fox3ms.com. Now, climbing for altitude, taking off from Growling Sidewinder to Tbilisi base. Flying a J-11. Weapon loadout is as follows: 2 PL-12 Fox 3 Fire and Forget missiles, then a Fox 1 ER, Fox 2 Long 27 ET, a pair of R-73s for close range, and a pair of jammers on the outboards. As always, the reason the jammers are there, if you haven't seen my other videos, it is to ensure that once the jamming is on, the enemy aircraft will not be able to shoot a lofted AIM-120 at me from halfway across the map, which is a real thing and a real pain. Basically, what it'll do is it'll reduce the range at which the enemy aircraft can fire a good missile at me. They can fire a missile at me, but it won't loft to high altitude and come down at me, which will increase my chance of survival by decreasing that missile's aerodynamic capabilities. Alright, so rolling over and starting to level out somewhat here, passing through 7,000 meters metric, and I'm going to go and pick up some speed. I did a very fast burn, so I've climbed up to altitude of approximately 7,000 meters now, and burn through 1 ton of fuel. Not the most efficient way. I probably would have saved about 500 kilograms of fuel, but this will be a fast flight. If I had gone lower and slower without afterburner all the way to this altitude, yeah, I probably would have saved a little bit of fuel. Alright, so next thing is, of course, find the targets. J11 has an awesome data link, and I'm going to rely on that, and as well as my radar. I'm in green on the screen, and leave comments, subscribe, share this video, and of course like. But right now we'll accelerate to 3 times the speed as I continue picking up speed and altitude. Now passing through transonic, so going to Mach 1.1. And still gaining just a little bit of altitude at around 10,000 meters. Alright, so we've got some possibly good targets over to the left, over to the south. These are aircraft coming out of the Kutaisi Air Base on the blue side. One hostile is fairly low on the deck. That's an F-18. Trying to pick him up. And his friend is an F-15 in the back. Based on the behavior of the aircraft and how they're flying and what they're doing, I can tell that the F-18 is maneuvering and is really not going to be a successful shot here. But his friend, the F-15, is flying in a nice straight line. I've got him locked up and turning in for a shot here. I'm at Mach 1.2, 1.3, and he is coming at me, so he deserves a Fox 3. There's the PL-12, the Chinese Fox 3 missile. It's being lofted and it's going up. I've rolled out to the right, and I still have lock on the F-15. This missile's been flying for a few seconds now, and it's at Mach 3.7, heading right for that eagle. He's about to panic and have a whole bunch of trouble right here. There's the missile, there's the eagle, and splash, F-15 Charlie. Alright, easy kill, high altitude, fast, and aggressive. That's what the flanker can do. You might be wondering why I didn't bring all the missiles. Well, that's just so that it can be lighter and accelerate more. Sometimes you just want to go fast, and yes, maybe you'll sacrifice a couple of splashes, but still, it's worth it. Alright, so on data link I'm picking up 3 targets, and as you can see they are on the tac view on the right side now. And there's a Mirage 2000 and I believe a couple of F-18s, and I'll highlight them for you here. as they fly through the canyons in front of me. Because they're maneuvering through the canyons, I'm not able to get a good lock on them. There's one Mirage 2000 just hiding out. Perfect place to get them, but not quite as efficient. F-18 also fairly low, sneaking around. And there's also a third friend of theirs. Realizing that they're flying away from me, no point to chase them. I do have another target coming in from directly to the north. So I've got a good lock. I'm at about 40 kilometers. And there's a Fox 3 launch. So again, nice and fast. I was at Mach 1.45 when I fired that missile. 40 kilometers. Unless this guy defends immediately, he'll be in trouble. And look, he's doing that already. So he fired two M120s. And he's turning away cranking, dragging my missile. First thing I do, I roll out into a 90-degree perpendicular beam to those missiles. And find a new target, named Violet in the F-18. Seems like an easy shot, and I fire a 27 ET, fire and forget. Don't need to hold a lock. Unless, of course, I fired it in override, which means I did not have a good seeker lock. Missile flies by, completely useless. I drop chaff and flares. Violet's missile is tracking me, but it's down to Mach 1.2 and I've got more than enough speed. So I'm climbing up, dragging that missile along with me into the altitude. But unlike that missile, I actually have a pair of engines which are still accelerating me, whereas that missile is just losing more and more speed. Alright, new target on my nose, crossing right to left, but Violet is behind me. And so I'm looking at data link, and as you can see, the question is, what's Violet going to do? Let's see if Violet's after me. Let's do a maneuver and watch Violet on the data link. And Violet is definitely giving chase. Alright, so here's my state. I am Mach 1.2. I'm at 5,000 meters. Violet is Mach 1.0 at 4,000 meters. A couple of options here, and the worst option is to turn back and fight with Violet. Violet's only 20 kilometers away. That's just about 10 miles, which means that Violet can fire a Fox 3 as I turn in. What I don't know is the skill level of Violet. Does Violet know what a closure rate is? And if so, Violet could predict that I'm turning into him, her, them, and fire a missile. So I'm not going to count on the pilot's skills with the equipment and the HUD. Instead, I'm going to go for the bushes here. Full speed ahead, slowing down to Mach 1.0. Violet picks me up and goes for a Fox 3. It's a 5-mile launch. There's that missile. And I'm trying to get as low as possible up against these trees and wrap around the canyon. Boom, the missile hits the side of the mountain, saves my life, as planned. And I'm continuing my left-hand turn through this valley. The idea is to come around, pop up on Violet, and take Violet out before Violet knows what's going on. Super stressful, looking around, trying to use my helmet, trying to use my vertical scan. Trying to predict where Violet would have gone. Data link is updating, but not quickly enough. It's telling me that Violet is somewhere in front of me. But remember, data link is about 5 seconds too old. So Violet has repositioned and is going back the way that Violet came. And I got a good lock. And Fox won. I could have saved a Fox 1 and fired a 73 short range Fox 2, but in this case, Violet just needed to be addressed and I needed to get out of here. Why? I've lost situational awareness while I was fighting, while I was dragging Violet around through the bushes, and I didn't want to stay here any longer. Besides, if Violet had something like a AIM 9X, I'd be in a lot of trouble. And good respectful response back to Violet. And a bit of advice, never to follow the flanker into the bushes. Alright, so RTBing and a summary. As you can see, the flanker can be employed fast at high altitude, as well as low down in the weeds. Knowing when to use which strategy is important. While you've got the speed and while you're able to maneuver, the flanker up high is perfect. If you end up in a situation where you have hostiles chasing you, the worst thing you can do is to try to turn back in on them. You don't know if they are novice or if they're expert pilots. All that Violet had to do was to fire a AIM 9X at me. I would have never even heard the launch. It would have just smacked me and I would have been dead and down with. So keeping these things in mind, always try to find a way to protect yourself from the radar and the missiles of the enemy aircraft. If you're going down into the weeds, turn off your jammers and don't dump extra chaff and flares. And I've got some traffic here in front of me. I'm thinking about this video and that flanker that just overshot me and is appearing to land somewhere in front of me as I come in for this landing. Speed is good. Brakes are out. Really trying to focus on that flanker, make sure I don't run into him. I think he's just cleared the runway, so I'm A-okay. 230, nice and slow, perfect speed, and I belly flopped because I forgot to drop my gear. See, that's what happens when you overthink things. But boy, oh boy, do I look good. Alright, well, hopefully you've enjoyed this video other than my landing, and that just shows you have to be aware and present. Subscribe.